welcome to Lunch and Learn as we celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. today. And to start off, we're going to have a land acknowledgement. Oh, before I even go any further, I want to give thanks to Dr. Marsha Arunga Tate and Carl Forbes for collaborating for this collaboration so we can bring this, present this to you. And I'm going to do the land acknowledgement, and to find out, because everyone's not on the same land, to find out what land you're on, you can go to native, oh gosh, I'm nervous right now. native/land.ca, and you can find out what land you're on. And I'm here in Olympia right now, but like Tacoma is on Coast Salish land and Tacoma tribes. And here in Evergreen, we are on, so the Evergreen State College is located on ceded territories of the Medicine Creek Treaty Tribes, which includes the Squaxin Island Tribe, the Nisqually Indian Tribe, and the Puyallup Tribe of Indians. The Olympia area was historically a center for trade and exchange among many Salish Sea tribes, including Sirhalish, the Suquamish, and others. With this awareness, we honor the ancestors and pay respect to the elders past and present of the Medicine Creek Treaty Tribes and to all Native people of this land. And without further ado, I'll turn over to Carl Forbes.
All right, the next piece that we have up is going to be a celebration of King from the Lumi Nation.
Naut Siam, Nostalgia Siam. I'd like to welcome you to the 2021 Martin Luther King Day celebration. On behalf of Children of the Setting Sun, I'd like to acknowledge this time together as a time of unity, a time where we need to stand together and begin to walk together towards a more just and equal world.
it's something how different peoples celebrate and honor different individuals like Dr. King. So I thought that was really moving, and I hope that you did too. And next up is going to be some words from Dr. King in his own words, taken from his acceptance speech for the Nobel Prize in Oslo, Norway, back in 1964. And so we'll watch a quick video of that, and then we'll move into our student reflection. That speech was given in 1964. And let that sink in for a moment as you think that some of the issues he's discussing in that clip in 1964 are still prevalent today. Let me introduce myself. My name is Carl Forbes. I'm Associate Director of Admission with responsibilities for multicultural recruitment. I'm glad to see so many familiar faces today. We've got a couple of more things to share with you, and then we're going to open up the conversation for comments and also give back. The next thing that we're going to have is a reflection from Abe Holifield. She sent an introduction. It got here just too late for us to get started, so to get it in there. So I apologize for that. So Ab, if you wouldn't mind, could you just give everybody, because I know you're on here right now, could you just tell everybody who you are, and that way when they hear the speech they have some context?
Yes, Carl. Thank you. Hi, my name is Abe Holifield. I am a branch of the IESS team. I work with Trio Upward Bound Clover Park as an educational specialist, and I also have interned with Trio Upward Bound Tacoma as a success coach. Hey, Janine and Paviel. What else? Oh, okay. When I was a student at Evergreen, I was a co-president of Black Students United, BSU, and I enjoyed it. It was so much fun. And I also worked with the IESS team to create a exclusive people of color exhaling event, because I noticed that all of the people of color, okay, every culture, was holding their breath while they were walking through campus or while they were doing anything. And I didn't like that, because community, unity is community. And so that is all. Welcome, and thank you for watching. Hello, everybody.
All right, so let's see AB's reflection.
Hello. Hi. Joyful day, fellow quarantined community. I am Abe Holifield. Today I will be sharing my reflection on a Martin Luther King quote with you. The quote is, "We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in the single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." This quote made me reflect on how both hope and action inevitably create voice, not only verbally, also through written and film context. Film context, think about voice. Everyone is telling a story. A great example of film context relating to this subject is Hidden Figures, played by three phenomenal women: Octavia Spencer, Taraji P. Henson, and Janelle Monáe. Those are the three main characters. Watch the movie. That is an amazing example of film context. Now, as for written context or language, right? Caucasians and others without melanin are considered ascendants of their history, meaning rising in influence or power. Now, African Americans, and melanated Americans and melanated people, people with brown skin, are descendants of our history. The first two letters of descendant are the letters D and E. Combined, they are one prefix. And the meanings of D, DE, are down, away from, and off. In connection, Dr. Martin Luther King also stated, "A riot is the language of the unheard." And I am here to add to his wisdom by saying an insurrection is the language of the entitled. What is equitable about oppressive language everyone is programmed to speak and fearful to question? We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. Thank you, Dr. King. Let's cross into the garment of destiny, shall we? Honestly, the garment is destiny. Our food is education. Peace of mind comes from truth brought to light. And we cover our feet for the fight through the valley of the shadow of death where we fear no evil. Check this out. America is stolen from indigenous people, farmed and raised by enslaved African people. 30% of everything is manufactured by impecunious Chinese people. Yes, we have had a little bit of progress, but no justice, equality, or equity. We are tied in the single garment of destiny. Thank you, Dr. King. Now, let us take a moment of silence for every brown-skinned human being wrongfully murdered for wearing a hoodie, fighting the lies, surrendering to the police, speaking the truth, and breathing while black. Thank you. This pandemic has allowed the truth to be spoken through the actions of the ignorant. Prejudice is a piece of isolation that I have felt for as long as I can remember, and COVID-19 has magnified the three truths and one lie conservative people demand others to believe. The three truths are racism, hate, and jealousy. The one lie is liberty. Racism, hate, and jealousy are a piece of America's history that Dr. King acknowledged fearlessly, and his voice echoes into every generation. Jealousy is a disease, marked, masked, and labeled as a trend, challenge, or spray tan. Hate is a mess made by the oppressor. I will not clean your mess. Racism is a genocide, habitually repeated and celebrated. Watch or read the global news. You will understand. Thank you for sharing your time, space with me. Hope you smile, and I hope you learned something. I am Abe Holifield. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Next up, we're going to get a musical selection from Eleanor Warren, 2017 graduate of Evergreen-Tacoma.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, help me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. When my way grows clear, precious Lord, is almost gone. Hear my cry, hear my call, hold my hand, lest I fall. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, help me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn, yes. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. Lord, lead me home. Lord, take my hand and lead me home.
Thank you so much. For those of you who didn't know, it's said that at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis the night before he died, when he was sitting, or the night that he died, he was sitting with the other folks in the room and expressed that this was his favorite song, Dr. King's favorite song, and was looking forward to hearing it again soon. Unfortunately, that did not happen. Next up is our keynote. And so I'm going to read for you his introduction. So please bear with me as I do that. And then we'll hear from our keynote, Mr. Kwabi Amoah-Forson, who graduated in 2015 from Evergreen. Over the past several years, he's worked to promote peace on multiple levels within the Tacoma community and nationwide. In spring of 2017, he was inspired by peace campaigner Brian Haw of London, England, and began campaigning for peace at Wright Park in Tacoma. Every Saturday for several months, Kwabi would take peace posters, a radio, and a megaphone to the park and hold conversations with people about what peace meant to them. He called it the Peace Camp. This then led him to travel to different parts of the Northwest, California, and eventually parts of Europe, having conversations with everyday people about peace. And after finishing this campaign, Kwabi began a local podcast called the Real Peace Podcast, interviewing people in the community on the subjects of peace, interpersonal connectivity, conflict resolution, and the importance of culture and diversity. Being inspired by great humanitarian Abby Nathan in 2018, Kwabi began taking flight lessons for the sole purpose of becoming a peace pilot, to attempt to be the first person to circumnavigate the globe in promotion of world peace. Let's hope that that actually happens. However, he stopped taking lessons, but decided that he still wanted to promote peace with a vehicle. And this is where the Peace Bus was born. In the beginning of 2019, Kwabi bought a 1988 Mitsubishi van and named it the Peace Bus. With this bright blue vehicle, he began to distribute brand new socks to those experiencing homelessness in the city of Tacoma. And in the spring of 2019, the media was in a frenzy about the immigration crisis and the major atrocities that were taking place in detention centers all over the country and at the Mexican border. Kwabi had the idea to take the Peace Bus to the border of Mexico in order to interview Border Patrol about the immigration crisis and to reveal the truth behind it all. This massive peace campaign was called the Peace Bus, Journey to the Mexican Border. Kwabi assembled a team of 3 to go with him on the journey. By receiving donations from the people of Tacoma and across the country, he raised enough money to take the trip. The Peace Bus embarked on the journey of a lifetime to the border of Mexico, and in August of 2019, Kwabi and his team stopped in major cities along the way to give out socks and blankets to those experiencing homelessness. After having the incredible opportunity to interview San Diego Border Patrol, as well as educator of nonviolence Michael Nagler, Kwabi came back to Tacoma where he shared the entire experience online. Local news stations heard about the Peace Bus journey and began to publicize the humanitarian organization. And during the fall of 2019, Kwabi took the Peace Bus to schools in the Tacoma area to talk to kids about nonviolence, kindness, compassion, and what it means to show peace. Since then, he's helped to distribute breakfast cereal to over 300 families in need during the coronavirus outbreak, and recently delivered Christmas presents to over 200 kids whose families have recently gone through financial hardship. For Kwabi, the pursuit of peace is most important endeavor in which we must pursue. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Kwabi Amoah-Forson.
Dr. Angela Ferris Watkins wrote a children's book in 2015 called Love Will See You Through. In it, she explains 6 guiding beliefs of Martin Luther King Jr., several unwavering principles that one of the greatest men in history used in order to create monumental change in our world. These principles are simple yet very insightful, and yes, the author of the book, Dr. Watkins, was Martin Luther King's niece. She explains the 6 guiding beliefs of Martin Luther King were: number 1, to have courage; 2, to love your enemies; 3, to fight the problem and not the person; 4, that when innocent people are hurt, others are inspired to help; 5, to resist violence; and 6, that the universe honors love.
One of these main things is, when it comes to interpersonal peace, is food, clothes, and shelter. Making and creating a society where people have those fundamental principles in place so they can live their lives. Because if you don't have food, clothes, and shelter, you're not living, you're surviving.
Since I first began my own peace and humanitarian efforts in 2017, I was deeply influenced by the principles as well as the life of Martin Luther King. Dr. King, he believed in love being the guiding force to bring people together. He claimed that all men are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. I also believe this to be true in that reaching the highest potential of humanity will rely on our ability to make peace amongst ourselves, to find respect in regards to our differences, to dismantle the institutions of poverty, racism, and inequality, and to provide liberty for all mankind, and not only to just a select few. Just as space is the last endeavor for exploration, peace is the final frontier for society. And that is to say that there is no other pursuit on earth more important. Growing up as a kid, my mom would sit my brother Kwesi and I down and tell us about the work Dr. King did. She'd also tell us about the boycotts and the marches and the sit-ins. She told us about the civil rights protests and how when she was a little girl, she went to an all-black school. She also drank from a colored drinking fountain. My mom told us about having to sit on the top floor of the movie theater because that's where Negroes were supposed to sit. My mom lived through segregation. I'm not talking about my grandma or my great-great-grandma, but my mom did. My mom also told us that in that time, leaders began to rise up and speak out against injustice. These leaders weren't politicians or council members. They weren't aristocrats or policymakers. They were everyday people. People who felt that enough was enough. They had the courage and love and tenacity for change. They were like Martin. It's been 52 years since the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., and in our current place and time, we find ourselves fighting for the same justice that Dr. King dedicated his life for. It has been said that our era is reminiscent of the days of the Civil Rights Movement. The 60s and now are both periods of protest, unity, and change. The year 2020 released a wave of consciousness, something like we've never seen before. We're fueled by the innocent deaths of so many, and tempered by the wounds of racism and injustice. Thousands of our fellow citizens hit the street to protest. Black, white, red, and brown marched side by side speaking against injustice, each word adding to the electric wave of awareness permeating through our nation. Mantras like "Don't Shoot" and "Black Lives Matter" mimicked the civil rights mantras of the old times, slogans that said, "I'm a man and Jim Crow must go." These parallels between the 60s and now, attributed between 2 separate periods in time and separated by a half a century, are a testament to the power of collective consciousness, the willpower of the people, working together towards the common goal of liberty and the might of the common person taking a stand for the betterment of humanity. For in fact, to work towards the betterment of African Americans is to work for the betterment of all people. These parallels between the 60s and now, contrary to the inspiring acts of hope we witnessed, also reveal a dark and dismal reality of the remaining prevalence of violence and racism in our country. During the time of the Civil Rights Movement, African Americans were subjected to the lethal violence of police brutality, and still, this form of violence continues today. African Americans lived in disproportionate levels of poverty in relation to their white fellow citizens, and still, this form of violence continues today. In the 60s, most African Americans, Latino, and Native American students were educated in segregated schools funded at rates many times lower than those serving whites. As of 2020, educational experiences for minority students continue to be substantially separate and unequal. 2/3 of minority students still attend schools that are predominantly minority, most of them located in central cities and funded well below the neighboring suburban districts. These schools tend to have fewer resources for their children and lack the standards needed to equip them for college and beyond. I find the tragedy of lacking quality education as one of the greatest forms of violence because it deprives children from reaching their true potential in a world of abundance. As a world, we look to find the solutions to many of our problems and create new innovations that will lead humanity to a better place. We look for the cure for cancer, or a rocket ship that will take us to distant planets. We seek solutions for environmental sustainability and inventions that will help to ensure a better quality of life. I feel fortunate to know that these solutions we so desperately need are here. They are within the minds of Black children all over this nation who, due to racism, don't have the opportunity to cultivate their potential through a quality education. The ugly fact of racism is that it not only creates division based in ignorance, but it directly hinders progress of human potentiality. By holding up the pillars of racism, the world binds its hands together and chooses the right progress with only using its feet. Our country cannot afford another 52 years of being limited by a society that says only the wealthy deserve the tools to solve our problems, or a system that promotes an evil hierarchy of elitism based off of gender and colorism. In order for us to advance to the magnitude in which we seek, we all must have a chair at the table of opportunity. In the last few months before his death, Dr. King embarked on a courageous campaign for the nation's poor. The Poor People's Campaign demanded the radical redistribution of wealth to those living in poverty in the United States. The campaign's demands were 1, full employment, 2, a guaranteed income, and 3, decent housing for every American. The campaign recruited among all races and ethnicities with the goal of marching to Washington to get the government to respond to the economic needs of the poor. 3 weeks before the march was scheduled to happen, Dr. King was assassinated. Over the last year, our country has witnessed the rising tide of protest against racial discrimination. This space of awareness and understanding opened the eyes of many who failed to see the violent repercussions of prejudice within their own nation. Americans read books on Black struggle to get a better understanding of their own biases, and some donated to Black businesses as a means towards aiding the community. These protests for justice were needed and warranted by the pain felt by so many for so long. But I feel that in this time, a new movement must begin. When Martin organized the Poor People's Campaign, the civil rights movement was beginning to alter into a new phase of progressive action. I believe that this shift was the primary reason of why he was assassinated. Yes, it does a great deal to dismantle racism by educating yourself on its complexity and inimical nature. And yes, when we protest, it raises realizations of truth and puts them in plain sight for others to see. But the ability to defeat racism on a macro level is embedded in the distribution of power by economic and cultural means. Jesse Jackson, one of the most influential leaders of the civil rights movement, worked alongside Dr. King and proposed the concept of a national development plan for African Americans. In the early 1970s, he sought to continue the legacy of Dr. King by speaking of an idea of a livable wage for the nation's working class, as well as a government investment plan for African Americans. When Japan and Germany were economically stricken after World War II, America didn't send a war on poverty program to help them recuperate. or an expensive welfare program to come to their aid. The United States responded to these countries with a national development program which included capital investments, market incentives, and tax breaks. I believe that the next steps towards liberating African Americans will have to come through an economic means. Black economic development means better schools and better jobs. It means having a livable wage and decent housing. It means cultivating freedom and creating a world where those who practice the tactics of racism cannot prevent others from reaching their true potential. Those of us who seek to be only a fraction of the human being that Martin Luther King was can do so by finding the courage within to fight the problem of racism and not the people. This fight can be waged non-violently, and when innocent people are hurt in the process, we can count on each other for support. Division will only help to silence the song of love, and love is the primary source for all justice. If you listen, you can hear the song of love within the old Negro spirituals sung by African slaves, or even in the song One Love by Bob Marley. Love can be heard within the conversation of a black child and a white child working together on a school science project, both realizing together they can discover how to make a paper volcano erupt. The song of love flows through the possibility of opportunity and through the belief that we are all tied in a single garment of destiny. It flows through you and I, a mutual bond of knowing that love will see us through.
It pains me that we're not in person because I would love to hear the applause after that. That's fantastic. And Kwabi is here with us today. And when we open it up for comments and give back, hopefully Kwabi is going to share with you some of his projects that are coming up. So I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more about that. Next up is we're going to hear in his own words, again, from the speech in Oslo, Norway, Dr. King, toward the end of that speech. Next, I'd like to bring to the forefront Dr. Marsha Tate Arunga to close the program and open up our give back session.
My. First, I just want to thank all of our presenters today, but Kwabi, you have really brought to us in the forefront what we have been hearing this week about finishing the uncivil war. You have really brought forth the past of the Civil War to the Civil Rights era to today. And I so am grateful for your eloquence and your thoughtfulness. What I want to point out is that Kwabi has committed his life and been at this for several years now. What we see today is a culmination of many years of effort and trial, of money spent, money lost, and he has stayed with it, and he stayed in the game. This movement is not a small movement. It happened before him, and it will go on after him. But I do give you much respect for what you have contributed to this movement of peace. At Evergreen, we are so proud of you. In the Tacoma area, we are feeling the benefits of your wisdom and of your patience with the community. Thank you, Kwabi. Thank you so very much. And I would really love to hear Kwabi speak and maybe reflect a little bit on his words in his speech before we ask him questions or do a give back, if you don't mind, Carl. And Kwabi, please, just a moment of reflection. I give you, Kwabina, Amoah-Forson, you may unmute and give your appreciation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome
Thank you
job.
so much. Oh my
Proud of you.
goodness. Almost made me, I'm trying not to tear up. I'm trying not to tear up. Thank you so much, Dr. Arunga. Wow, that's some very, very big words. I really appreciate your words of encouragement, love, and compassion for what I'm doing, and also support. Evergreen has always been a major supporter of the Peace Bus and all of my endeavors, even before the Peace Bus, when I was doing peace campaigning, always been a major supporter. I appreciate you. I appreciate you and your confidence in me and your support in me. I appreciate that. Carl, thank you for reaching out to me as well and allowing me to be a speaker at this event. This is my first time being a keynote speaker anywhere. So this was amazing to be able to have this experience and to be able to cultivate my ideas and put them in a speech form. I had some really good help with some videographer friends of mine that helped to compile the video, but I chose all the clips, of course, and of course the words that I explained and expressed in the video were of my own. The speech was, as Dr. Arunga stated, was a accumulation of a lot of different experiences that I've had. It wasn't just my own experiences. I have gone around the world and talked to people about what peace means to them. This was sort of an educational platform for me to learn about peace outside of my own ideas, right? So going to Europe, going to different parts of the US, doing this sort of trial run to learn about what peace meant was very vital to coming up with the ideas and the concepts of how we're gonna move forward to create a more peaceful world. And one of those things that I elaborated in the very beginning of the video was establishing a society where everyone has the ability to have access to food, clothes, and shelter. Now, pertaining to African Americans, because this is really huge. I think it's a cultural shift. I talked about having a change towards economic and cultural means. What I mean by the cultural means, and I can get on the economic later, but the cultural means is creating a society where we realize the potentiality of humankind. Now, if we really understand and believe in the concept of us being equal as human beings, there'll be no question of whether or not why we wouldn't invest in ourselves as people, right? Investing in education. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. To invest in our education for those who don't necessarily have the means towards becoming, right? When we invest in them, we create the solutions that we desperately need. We want to create a world that promotes a better quality of life. Those solutions, like I stated in the video, they are in those, they lay dormant in those who don't have the means towards reaching the potential. So what I'm going to do, well, I guess I'll talk about that later, as far as what I have planned in the future. I haven't announced it publicly yet, but I'll be creating a major campaign, my biggest campaign that I've ever organized. I'm going to be announcing that in the spring, and I'll let you guys know about that pretty soon here. But it involves having the conversation of eradicating racism from a macro level. The work that we've done this year has been immense. We have brought the discussion of racism to the forefront. Those who have been experiencing racism since its genesis, obviously we feel the pain. And it's a story that has been ongoing for so long. But this year, the spotlight has been on on racism as an institution, right? As an institution, not necessarily as people, they'll have oftentimes when racism is looked at, it's looked at as on a micro level. You walk into a store, someone who owns the store says, you can't buy here, you're black, right? This sort of thing. But really looking at racism, hold on, someone was trying to call me. Looking at racism from a macro level, seeing that there are people in power that are actively, institutionally preventing people of color from reaching a certain level of potentiality. And what this does, it not only prevents, and this is the mindset, allowing those institutions to be in place prevent us from reaching our potential as human beings, right? I think that's a shift in our mindset that we have to look at. It's not only that we should get rid of or work towards dismantling racism from an ethical point of view, which is great. Ethics is great, but also from a means towards potentiality and economic wealth, right? We want to grow stronger. We want to gain more. We want to be the best that we can, and we cannot be the best of a human race without dismantling racism. And I mean, I could go on more, but I'm gonna,
That's powerful. Thank you. Thank you, Kwabi. That's a great moment for us to pause and ask if you might have any questions for Kwabi and comments to what he's been speaking on.
Dr. Kwabi?
Carry on,
Oh, yes.
Oh, I didn't know. I'm sorry. I'm not going to barge it. Okay. I really appreciate it. Your video, I thought it was an amazing compilation. I appreciate what you're doing and contributing. It's good to see some younger people in it, you know what I'm saying, especially leading the cause. I guess I was just me personally, when you ended with love is the way, I guess I get so frustrated because it sounds something like white liberals say, like love is the way and democracy's back. And it's like, we still got work to do. Love doesn't work just in relationships alone. So I think, love and work, but I really love the video. And plus you have a great voice.
Thank you. Well, what I meant by love. So I would hate for it to be misconstrued as passivism. It's not passive. Love is not passive. Love is tough, right? To truly love someone is to put them in, is to see them as equals, but to also promote their well-being, right?
Correct.
So if white America truly loves us, what I'm going to be doing in the future is a test. It's honestly a test to see if love is truly a part of our fabric as people. If white Americans truly love us, then they will allow us to, I wouldn't say allow us, but they will be able to give us the ability to reach the potentiality of ourselves, of who we are as people. We've been held down for 400 years through an institution of racism, of poverty, of lack of access to education, right? So a part of that love is lifting those barriers, but not only that, but creating a society where we can have economic access. And that's not handouts. I think that's another thing people don't, like a lot of people don't understand. We're not asking for handouts. First of all, we're asking for what's due to us. It's what's due to us and owed to us. And then second of all, it deals with benefiting humanity in general. People of color, if you want to, African Americans, people with brown skin, the sense of colorism, they have a less access to the means towards reaching potential, like I stated before. But it's basically like I stated, with our hands being bound, and we're trying to write progress with our hands being bound and only using our feet. We're not using all of our means. We want the cure for cancer. Cancer doesn't care what color you are. What the solutions that we need are in those who don't have the means towards reaching the potential. I'm done talking.
No, I would love to talk to you. I know we got a class, lots of people have stuff to say, but I would love to talk to you further, maybe afterwards. Thank you, Dr. Ringo. You brought in another killer, man. This is amazing. I love this.
Thank you, Kwame. And you too will be up here one day. All of you will have your chance. And we're just so proud of Kwabi, but we expect this, nothing less, of our Evergreen Sankofas, and of course, our Evergreen community in Olympia. We are doing big things. Kwabi is just one example of those big things. And so we expect you all to go behind it. All right, are there any questions or comments left for Kwabi?
It looks like Karen has a question or comment.
Go right ahead, Karen.
You can unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, Evergreen family. This is wonderful. Dr. How do you say your name properly? Kwabena? Kwabena?
Yeah, my name's Kwabena, but I go by Kwabi, but my full name's Kwabena, means fire. My dad's from Ghana, West Africa, so.
Okay. Kwabena. My name is Karen Amoah-Forson. How are we organizing and mobilizing our communities to make that impact and to support the change? And then how are we working alongside of organizations like the Village of Hope and the People's Institute that have been doing this work for over 40 years, and those that have labored to raise the voice of community and also unify the community, because we have to strengthen the hearts and minds of all of our community members to get behind this shift and this change and transformation that needs to happen. And you know, we've worked for so many years, our ancestors and our spiritual leaders and our community leaders that have given their life and given all of their efforts to make the impact. But there is something that is concerning to me when the language is so divisive, when we can't begin to move healing and reconciliation forward in a way that pricks the conscience and the hearts and the minds of souls, period, across racial divides, across color divides, across cultural divides, age divides, and to be able to do that type of leveling of the playing field, to step into justice and step into truth and healing and reconciliation. I'm very interested in the work that you do, but how do we unify and strengthen one another in our community to move? Because our community, we have some inside work we have to do as well. You know, we have that institutionalized inside racism that we carry even as a people, and our colorisms and all of the ills that came with colonizing and all the ills that came with the institutionalized oppression and racism that has happened in this nation. Even when we talk about it from whose land we're on and how we are not the only ones that have been stripped of humanity, but how do we speak in those terms and begin to empower and transform a mindset? Because we have a mindset of racism in this nation, and you got to speak to the mind as well as the heart and the soul of humanity to make this something that is so transformational. You know, people want to step into their healing. I know a lot of white folks that are fearful and don't even know they want to. Their hearts and minds are being pricked, but then they fall back into the systemic racist oppressive culture that they've been culturalized into as well. So the work, I'm just sharing my heart, but I want to hear from you as a young advocate and a young abolitionist and a young man of color, of how that reach is going to reach across humanity.
What a beautiful question. What is your name again?
My name is Karen Amoah-Forson.
Karen, thank you for that question. in the video, I talk about the shift of in order for us to advance as people, and I want to emphasize African Americans in that. I'll expand onto the rest of the people of color. So in pertaining to African Americans, I talk about an economic and cultural shift. You're talking about the cultural shift, right? Which is just as equal as the economic one, right? And the cultural shift is going to take us. It's going to be more on us. The economic is owed. The cultural is for us to manifest within our own community. And that includes an education of self. I believe that that's where it starts, right? For example, for myself, I grew up in University Place, Washington. I grew up upper middle class. The school that I went to, Curtis High School, great education in the sense of I would say traditional academia, and I even am construed with that. But what does it mean to be traditional? But if you look at it statistically, it's a pretty good school. But I wasn't taught about myself. My mom taught me about where I came from, about the lineage in which I derive from, the many African Americans, the many people of color that strive to allow us to be where we are today. This is an immense gap that I feel that a lot of kids and a lot of youth our age aren't getting. My mom had me when she was 41, the old mom, right? And thusly, a lot of the ideas and concepts of this Black unity she was subjected to, or she was she was in when she was younger, right? And so that was passed down to me. We have to continue on this passing of our culture, of Black culture, of African American culture, and this is the same with other people of color. But I think, especially with African Americans, though, there has been less of that, and that's why it's important for us to continue with that legacy. In pertaining to the many organizations that have been working diligently for many, many years to help us to grow, whether that's with access to economic wealth, housing, food, these sort of things, and education, these are great. These are massive, and these are the micro aids that are lifting us and holding us in place for now. What I am talking about is the macro solutions that will have to be put in place in order for African Americans to be where they need to be, and thusly adding to the society and helping us grow as human beings. That's what I've been getting at. Yes, the micro is needed, much needed, and this work has allowed us to be where we are today. The fact that as African Americans that we are here in this room talking on Zoom is amazing. We are descendants of slaves. We came from literally nothing economically. We have professors, we have doctors, we have lawyers. The African American struggle is the underdog story of humanity. So now that we've gotten to this place with nothing and getting here, imagine what we could do if we had the means towards reaching our potential. I really truly believe in the testament of us being the solutions, people who have been deprived, people of color who have been deprived, of us being the solutions that we so desperately need. I feel that we can create these solutions. Hopefully that answered a lot of your question. And if not, I'd be down to talk with you after this. I love talking about peace. It's my thing.
We have a question from Christina. Christina, please unmute yourself and share your question.
Hello, my name is Christina Elguero Mateo. I am a high schooler. I go to Shelton High School, and I was just wondering, what books do you recommend for high schoolers or young adults, and ways that you or ways of how do you, like, my words are bad, but how would you like educate young, or like how do young people like me educate themselves, and how did it feel when you took your first steps And did people see you differently when you talked about the things you loved? Thank you.
Thank you. That was a really cool question. Yeah. Reading is a must. Reading is a must. If you're looking to expand yourself, reading is a must. This was one, when I got into the idea of economic wealth as a means towards reaching a peaceful world, a more peaceful world, talking about, yes, we talk about cultural equality, which is amazing and needed, but talking about economics and why there are third world countries and why there are first world countries. How did the third world get there, right? Why are there some countries that are more economically deprived than others? This was a good book, Why Nations Fail by James A. Robinson. It taps into this, it taps into that. And it diffutes a lot of the ignorance that many people have behind places like Africa or Southeast Asia of why these nations, in some respects, have been held back economically. For years, there were farces that would say like, oh, well, people that live in these countries are not as intelligent or would have, which is just even thinking how people, it blows my mind to see how people could even muster up that conjecture is beyond me. But it diffutes these things. These are the tools. This book will give you the tools in order to expand on why that is, and then also elaborate on tools as to how we can go about building those who are in destitution and moving them towards a sense of reaching potentiality, which I'm big on, reaching potential. There's also a book called The Art of Waging Peace by Paul K. Chappelle, which I've read. It talks about how to have interpersonal relations with others peacefully, non-violently, how to agree with others who may not agree as yourself, having conversations with people who are completely polarized in their ideology, which is a very important skill. In moving forward with my own movement, you know, and especially with peace campaigning, what is the book title? Oh, this one? No, Why Nations Fail, by James A. Robinson. But I lost my train of thought. The book about peace. Oh, the book about peace is called The Art of Waging Peace by Paul K. Chappelle. It's a very good book, very good book. But I guess I was expanding on this. I'm not in the business of convincing everyone, and no one should be in the business of trying to convince everyone. You can't. But what we want to do is to try to convince many people. There are people that you obviously won't be able to connect with just because, I don't know, they're so far from the ideology in which you believe or speak of. But that doesn't mean that you can't still have an amiable nature between each other, unless, you know, they're so far off that you can't. I mean, something like Nazism, we don't mess with that. Something that's so far off that we can't empathize or even go towards. But okay, next question, I guess.
Kwabi, how do we get in touch and begin to connect the dots and come alongside this movement and effort?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I guess I'll tell you guys now what I'm planning on doing. You guys will be the first to hear it. I'll be announcing it in March. I'm going to be starting a new campaign with the Peace Bus. I've had many campaigns, all of which have been very successful. I'm pretty good at marketing. I went to business school, so I'm pretty good at how to convey a concept with others and have it resonate. And I thought, well, we do this so much with commodities, Coca-Cola, Sears, places like that. You know, they do a lot of marketing. Why can't we do the same thing with peace and togetherness and how we can progress as people? So this next campaign will be the Peace Bus, Manifest Humanity. Manifest Humanity. Just the same as when pioneers came across from the East Coast to the West, and manifesting destiny. It will be Manifest Humanity. I'll be taking the Peace Bus and a crew with me. I'll be creating an expose and elaborating on the ideas and the concepts of which I believe are peaceful and how we can come together as a nation. And I'll be taking the Peace Bus and traveling to Washington, D.C. to meet with President Joe Biden in an effort to have a conversation with him about peace, togetherness, the eradication of how we can dismantle poverty, dismantle racism, and how we can go about creating quality education for every human being in America. And that will be, I'll be announcing that in spring. Don't tell anyone yet. I haven't announced it publicly, but it will be the biggest campaign that I've ever indulged in. And I hope that it will be something that will resonate with people. And in supporting that, just spreading the word about it. When I announce it, spreading the word about it would be great. I think the funds will come, which is fine. You know, I believe in the effort of peace. And I believe that if it's elaborated eloquently enough, if it's presented non-violently, and there are measurable outcomes, right? A lot of people talk about peace, like peace and love, you know, it's all good. It's not all good. We need to have measurable outcomes in order to create change. It can't just be like we want love. Okay, great, cool, we want love. What does love look like from a statistical means, from an economic means, right? And so putting these in place and elaborating on that, I hope to create a successful campaign in the spring. And I will be announcing it in spring in hopes to travel to DC in August.
That is the most wonderful announcement, Kwabi. Thank you for all you do for peace. I think this is a good place to turn now to a give back. And for those of you who are not familiar with our give back is really just giving back to Kwabi the energy he gave us. Maybe you will tell us what you heard that you're going to leave with and hold on to after today. But we want to give that energy back to Kwabi so he could be on his way to do better work. And what an inspiration you have been today. So if we have anyone who would like to begin the give back, please be acknowledged.
I'll start. If you don't mind. I'll just say something short. Thank you again so much. It's like crazy how powerful words can be if you have like powerful ideas behind them, you know, like words can mean so much. I just wanted to say that like obviously you put a lot of like your own like time and resources into this like Peace Bus and everything, you know, that's not free, right? And it's just awesome that that you're doing it solely to spread an idea, and it's not to push a product, you know, it's not to push like some one person's like agenda. It has to do with this being like a collective, and it's just a powerful idea, and I think that it's really inspiring for you to put your resources into that. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I love your energy, man, and I appreciate you doing the work. A lot of people usually focus on one area. Some people just choose to focus on academia, which is essential. Some people just, you know, choose to study academia to go out in the field. And, you know, one thing I love about Evergreen and, you know, Dr. Arunga bringing you here is that, you know, it's a fusion of both. It's a hybrid of both education and activism. I had the blessing of meeting the President Joe Biden and President Barack Obama back in 2016. And I love what he's doing. I feel like, although I'll be honest, I'm going off America's track record, I don't have the same optimism. I love your energy, and your energy is contagious. And I'm almost upset that it is. Because I'm like, oh man, everything sucks, man. It ain't gonna change. You're like, you know, I'm starting this Peace Bus. I'm like, well, damn, not for me, man. Okay, I'm rooting for you now. You know, go talk to him, share the views. I definitely just ordered the book that you just showed, Why Nations Fail. Excited to read that. And it's just, I just want to touch base. I'll wait till after class, but I want to touch base more on what we were talking about earlier. But I just want to give you energy, say blessings and gratitude and I definitely give you, I'm rooting for you from back here.
Thanks, man. That was great. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
I just like to say that I'm grateful for everything that you have done and said over the years, and I am glad to see you again. I don't know if you remember me, but I appreciate everything that you're doing in the world and in Tacoma and for everyone around you. And one of the words that I really like is the word manifest. So I like how you go after what you think of and you help manifest dreams. And it's not just about you, it's about your dream to share love and peace for everyone. And that's something that I really aspire to do. Part of what my paper was that I wrote and published last year. So thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, manifest. It's a good word. Yeah, okay.
Ashley, why don't you go ahead?
Hi. I lost my view. Hi, I just wanted to give some give back to Kwabi. He's been a dynamic force to putting out the Black story and just giving back to the community, and it's so inspiring. And I'm so excited to see him kind of develop with the Peace Bus and all the other doors that he has coming up. So I just want to say thank you again. Now that we're in a different space, I appreciate your whole keynote speech. That was like absolutely blown me away. I was like, what? Like, how did he even get all these clips? You know, so thank you so much for that. That was awesome. Thank you for your time and your patience and all the days that you get up early to give back to kids, to getting the cereals from the grocery stores, everything you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ashley. It's nice seeing you again, and I hope to connect with you soon. I appreciate you.
I would like to say something.
Why don't you go ahead, Pam?
Hi, thank you. Kwabi, it's so nice to meet you. I have seen you in the parking lot at the Evergreen State College. I recently, of course, saw you, with the Martin Luther King Tacoma celebration. And it's so nice to really meet you and see you in person. I am just so grateful for all the work you do in our community. And if, in case none of you noticed, I come representing the pink and green Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, the sorority of our newly elected vice president. And I just want to say our organization is one of service, and I'd like to connect with you in at some point to just see how we can be of service to what you're doing to help move forward the agenda. I heard a lot about love. I had a conflict and couldn't get here in the beginning, but I heard you talk about love. I heard that word maybe 3 or 4 times in just the 2 minutes that I had to hear you. And so do you have a book that's entitled something about love? I missed it.
Yes, there is a book written by Martin Luther King Jr.'s niece called Love Will See You Through. It's a kid's book.
Okay.
When I was about a year and a half ago, I was going to a lot of elementary schools in the Tacoma area, and I was like scouring through online, looking for books that I felt were aligned with the principles of peace. And I came across this one and became a major influencer myself. Beautiful. And having really strong principles as far as conducting in peace relations. So this is great for kids. Okay. It's also good for adults too.
Okay, I didn't know if that was your book. I saw what looked like a book, and I didn't know if it was yours. But anyway, I just want to say thank you for being so involved in the community and for all that you do. And again, let's connect on some level and see how perhaps I can collaborate and help. We just all are in this together. So however we can help make your work more available to all is really what I'd like to do.
Hey, Pam, in the chat, you're able to send him a direct message. Why don't you
Okay. Yeah, we could do. I'll do that.
your contact information so we can get with you.
Well, it says, that's share screen. Okay, gotcha. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, make sure you send that to Kwabi. Don't say, because if you send it to all of us, we might all be calling you for help.
Oh, Lord, I don't want that. No, it's okay too. I got it. Thank you.
Are there other people with comments or give back? Anybody moved and want to share?
I was moved. I'll share.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, was that you, Elizabeth? Well, thank you. Okay. I just want to say thank you, Kwabi. I have seen you speak before at some of these events, and I'm so inspired, and I really do think it takes, people with you that has the passion to carry the torch, to keep the message alive. It's been a long time that this message has been needing to be spoken and heard. And I just, it can be very discouraging. I am glad to hear that love will see us through, because I'm one of those white liberals that really likes to believe that that's going to be true, but thank you so much for carrying the message.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, I mean, I know I'm supposed to not comment, but I would love to comment on that. I think oftentimes people are misconstrued with the concept of love. I think to love your brother, obviously, is to love yourself, right? It's a mutual bond. They talk about the garment of destiny, us being in a mutually bonded. And I feel like that's true. To advocate for the betterment of African Americans is in turn to advocate for humanity, right? So when we are joined together in that sort of way, I don't think we can lose. The idea of separation through a means of superiority, well, it hinders all of humanity. And I feel that oftentimes there's this essence of separation as a means towards power, which is not the case. I don't believe in that. Yeah.
I also saw The Anatomy of Peace on your desk, so I hope that's a good book too, because...
Oh, it's interesting. It's interesting. I got maybe halfway through. It elaborates more so on, there's a lot of interpersonal peace. How can you just have conversations with those who may think differently from you? There's a lot of that. It's a good book, though. It's a good book, but less on the economic side or the political side of peace, but it's still good.
All right, thanks.
I had wanted to give back. I really appreciated you going into the more concrete policy that Dr. King proposed in your video, because we never learn that shit. It's all just March on Washington and I have a dream and vague nonsense that, what am I supposed to do with that? Cool, Black people are equal. I knew that one. Where do we go from here? And it was really good and really inspiring to hear about, like, no, Dr. King wasn't just this vague figure who spoke in favor of peace. He spoke in favor of specific policy activists, specific policy action, and like radical social change. And he was a radical socialist, and we never really see that portrayed anywhere. And I think that was really cool to like see and hear about.
Yeah, MLK. Okay, so first of all, I Have a Dream is beautiful. It's a very beautiful speech, and it's needed. As individuals, we're on a journey, right? We are in a journey and gaining and growing as we live, right? The Poor People's Campaign was an accumulation of a lot of things that Dr. King had learned over time and had come to this head of realizing what will be the next step for equality for people of color and marginalized groups. He was gathering together Appalachian whites, Hispanics, African Americans, and Native Americans, these groups that have been subjected to impoverished violence for so long. And the Poor People's Campaign was that effort. And I believe that's consequently why he was killed, because I believe that economic freedom is a major step as far as power. And the transfer of power is something that a lot of people in the United States of America do not want. And but the farce is that it takes it will make us worse or something. I don't get it. But when we're all empowered, we all grow together and create solutions, and thusly create a better world. And that's the truth that I want to expand on in this next campaign that I'll be participating in.
Also, hi, Lily. I've been trying to get a hold of your office for like 4 months. I'd love to get your email if you could drop it in the chat.
All right. At this point now, we're at the close of our program. We are, it's just about 1:30. And if we could, let's see, Marla's out there somewhere. Marla, if you could close us out and talk about what's coming up next, that would be fantastic.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for this beautiful day. I definitely feel energized to rededicate myself to justice and freedom. We would like to so invite you to join us again on Friday, February 5th, same place, same time as Evergreen-Tacoma kicks off Black History Month. We're going to be having a panel on mental health and emotional wellness in times of COVID-19 and racial injustice. We're featuring Dr. Orasadi Awadola, president of the Institute of African-Centered Thought, Dr. Kamara Taylor, professor of psychology at South Puget Sound Community College, and Dr. Eric Clausell, clinical psychologist of VA Puget Sound. Will be moderated once again by our own Carl Forbes, associate director for multicultural admissions at Evergreen, and we really hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And with that, I say, everyone, I hope you were enriched. I certainly was. I'd like to thank everybody who took part in the event today, from our singers to our reflectors to our keynote. I think everybody shared something with us that we can definitely use as we move through our days. And in closing, I'd just like to say thank you and go in peace.